This is the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
People in Texas and across America have been saying, no more business as usual, no more of that establishment embracement of status quo that's spinning us into oblivion in Washington, D.C. We want reformers to come in there.
Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz are often compared to one another, a supreme compliment to both. This week, we have a heavy Palin-Cruz theme on the program. A woman who worked very hard to get Ted Cruz elected to the U.S. Senate is now running for office herself. Texas congressional hopeful Katrina Pierson is here. A Palin relative in the Lone Star State comes up with a gem regarding the latest Putin-Obama clash. That love of our right to bear arms runs in the Palin family. And Constitution Day 2013. Plus, a brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson will discuss a powerful Breitbart piece written by Governor Palin. And just ahead, our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. First up, a grassroots fighter and Tea Party darling running for Congress in Texas. She served as a steering committee member for the Dallas Tea Party. She's also the founder of the Garland Tea Party and a member of the Texas Tea Party Caucus Advisory Committee. She's all about liberty and freedom, and she's our special guest today. Katrina Pierson, welcome to the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
You're running for Congress in Texas in the 32nd District. You've been called a Cruz conservative, and since Sarah Palin and Ted Cruz are so tight, does that make you a Palin conservative too?
I'm definitely a Palin conservative, absolutely.
It was great at CPAC when Senator Cruz came out, as Governor Palin was introduced, and he took the floor first, and then he wound up actually introducing her. And the rapport that they have, it just speaks to everyone so much, especially in the grassroots and Tea Party movement, because they're real people. They have a sense of humor. They have a realness to them, but they're tackling serious issues all the time, and you can trust them. And that is something I think people see in you. It's a great combination.
Well, I appreciate that, and that is exactly why so many people resonate with Senator Cruz and Sarah Palin, simply because they're not people that come from a pedigree. They don't feel entitled to lead. And, these two, just like you said, they're just average people living an average life who really want to do big things for the country, and we applaud them both for that.
Now, you're doing something right now the Palins and the Cruzes of the world have encouraged Tea Partiers to do, and that's not just to run, but run in primaries and go after incumbents of the Republican Party who aren't up to snuff.
Well, you're absolutely right, and some people have asked me if I've fallen and bumped my head on something, and, it really wasn't as tough a decision as we got a little bit closer into, what we consider on the grassroots some of the biggest issues of our time. When we're looking at these individuals who've essentially lived in office, the incumbent that I'm challenging has been there almost 18 years now, who is just pushing the can down the line, even doing some of the things that the Obama administration wants to do. And to be frank with you, that's my biggest criticism. Since the grassroots came up in 2010 and took that gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hand, it seems this administration is getting everything that they've ever wanted without any challenges. And we need to restore the checks and balances in our nation's government.
Why would your constituents be better off with you in Washington as opposed to the current congressman? I think you kind of answered that just a little bit, but in more specifics as far as, we talk about a trustworthiness, but also just the issues themselves. You're going to campaign on things and then actually attempt to do them instead of playing ball.
That's exactly right. And, that's why we coalesced around Senator Cruz. We took on the establishment in the state, and many of us don't even remember eating and sleeping during that campaign for this reason and this reason alone. What we saw in Senator Cruz was a fighter. And what we know today on the grassroots is that Democrats are playing for keeps. We need to send people to Washington, D.C. who are going to fight, who are not going to roll over, who are not going to kick the can down the road, who are actually going to stand up and speak for what's right on conservative values and conservative principles and settle for nothing less.
in your campaign, even in the early stages, we hear a lot of honesty, and we talk about no more excuses. And I love that, but isn't it amazing that these are ideas that actually are looked at as new and almost scare the establishment? Shouldn't all public servants be honest and do what's right for the people? It's amazing that you have to actually come out and say America first, as opposed to, what are we looking at, Luxembourg?
And special interests. I mean, we have to follow the money in most of these cases. And I specifically am running on no excuses because every time we have presented an issue or a challenge to our congressman, we tell him, back Senator Cruz up on this, back Senator Cruz up on that, and we're looking at the situation with Obamacare, of which Pete Sessions, the House Rules Committee chairman, has been blocking the conservative effort up till this day, except for when they just passed the bill yesterday, to finally allow the vote to go to the floor. And we as conservatives and Republicans, I'm in North Texas, the Dallas County area, and the conservatives here want Obamacare defunded, period. So no more excuses, no more kicking the can down the road. We need to back Senator Cruz up, and that's another reason why I'm running, is because Senator Cruz needs an ally in the House of Representatives from the state of Texas.
And you have a healthcare background, so how does that make your passionate fight against Obamacare even more personal?
Well, it is. It's extremely more personal. I've been in healthcare for 12 years, and I've managed at a level 1 trauma center operations in neuroscience. And I have seen from the implementation of the HMOs to what we currently have today, and it is disastrous. And for me, as someone being in healthcare, to see these changes that are happening and to see these new rules, these new regulations, and essentially the revenue that's coming into these establishments are not trickling down into physicians or for the patient's care for that matter, we have to wonder why it's even called care at all. So we have to defund, we have to repeal and replace, and I'm afraid we're just out of time, and as grassroots leaders, we have got to step up, pick up the torch, and move forward.
You mentioned Sessions. What do you think of these Republicans in general who, ran against Obamacare, and now, they're ready to bargain. They're ready to say, oh, well, perhaps we can do, increments, or we could delay this and that. Why are they so afraid to do what Ted Cruz is attempting to do here? Is it just re-election? Is it misinformation? Or is it just this, this disease in Washington? People say a cesspool. The things that have been going on in Washington, is it just, the way it is there and you only have a few stand-up folks who will go against it?
Well, for these guys, I do think that's just the way that it is. Republicans never take the message to the American public, which is exactly what Senator Cruz and Senator DeMint did with Obamacare. They just want to go along to get along. And as I mentioned before, we understand the Democrats are playing for keeps, and we also know that once Obamacare gets in, it's going to destroy everything. And we just have to be simply willing to fight. With Pete Sessions, he and the other North Texas delegation have all been singing the same tune, to the point where they say, it's no longer Obamacare, it's the law. So you have to wonder what this means coming from a lawmaker. But these are the types of personalities and attitudes that may have worked in the 90s, but we cannot allow these personalities to stay and represent the American public in Congress today.
Now, I'm sure when you're out on the trail, and you probably have already, but you're probably going to get a question like this a lot, so let's throw it at you. Other than health care, which we talked about a little bit just now, what are the issues you'll really champion if elected?
Oh, one of my biggest issues, and I used to go on Fox News all the time with Neil Cavuto, is privacy. Civil liberties are the biggest issue of the day outside of Obamacare. Our rights have been eroded. And one of the things that I say when I do talk to crowds is we are currently living under the illusion of freedom, when the government can literally come into your home and take files off your computer, into your phones. I mean, we have teenagers, right, who have cell phones who probably aren't making the best decisions with them. But all this information is being extracted, stolen from you, and stored on a computer for whatever reason they're using these days. We really have to look at what they're using under the guise of national security, especially since there's been no interest to secure our borders or to track down expired visas. It seems that the American public has now become the interest of the federal government.
That's very well said. And folks, I got to let you know, she has that Cruz Palin humor, too. Can I share with the listeners, Katrina, how you signed your emails that we exchanged? Because I thought it was
please,
great.
Sure.
Katrina signs her emails, Katrina, and then in parentheses, and monitored by NSA, close parentheses. So, it's a serious thing. You just touched on it, and another outrageous scandal from this administration. But if we don't laugh a little, we'd cry.
I mean, you're absolutely right about that. And I do joke about it because I've had since I started doing the interviews on privacy, I've had some home network issues, and Verizon sent me this wonderful new router, so I'm pretty sure they're listening to this entire conversation.
Well, hello. Welcome aboard.
Exactly. And, that's what we have to do. We have to laugh or we will be crying. But you know what? There are so many people out there like myself who have been in the grassroots for the last 4 and 5 years, who've been in the weeds in their state legislature as well as watching the federal government, who have learned the tricks, who have learned the rules and the words that these politicians use to fool the low-information voters. And we're going to have to take our argument to the American public and make the case for the conservative cause, and I think we can win.
That is a wonderful point. I've said that many times about whether it's low information voters or just apathy as a whole. I don't think it's the Obama policies that are actually embraced, but people just not knowing what the heck is going on sometime. And I really do appreciate that, Katrina. Now, listen, if anyone can deliver and bring a real patriot to Washington, it's certainly the great state of Texas, and we hope that is what happens. How can people join your campaign?
We would love for everyone to visit us on the website. It's a temporary site right now at katrinaforcongress.com. And I do monitor my Twitter feed. You can also follow me at Katrina Pierson, Pierson. And we welcome everyone to join this campaign because this is a fight for everyone in America.
Katrina Pierson, Godspeed.
Thank you very much.
Go to katrinaforcongress.com to learn more. This is such an exciting candidacy. Katrina Pierson, fighting government outreach, fighting for all of us. katrinaforcongress.com. That's Katrina, F-O-R, Congress.com. Well, in that quintessential Palin style, the governor this past week turned the tables on her detractors once again. She tweeted and posted on Facebook a creative line that her Aunt Billy in Texas came up with. The line, quote, "I can see Putin's shoe print on Obama's behind from my house," unquote. Palin again showing the silliness of the lamestream media and addressing a serious topic, all with a quick line. Kudos to Aunt Billy. This past week, the governor also posted some great shots, all involving Palins and firearms. The governor on a big hunt, and even Piper Palin firing away, doing some mounted shooting at a Montana ranch. The Palins keeping our core American traditions intact. Constitution Day was this past week, and the governor reminded us that every day is Constitution Day, writing, quote, "In honor of Constitution Day, I'm rereading the great document, and I encourage everyone to do the same and to visit the National Archives to view our founding documents," unquote. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page and follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Susan Stimson, welcome back.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Well, Sarah Palin, guns ablazing on Breitbart this past week, writing an article regarding Obamacare, which we've been talking about a lot, and talking about Ted Cruz and his part in it. We see all of these Republicans who ran, saying they want to stop Obamacare, yet now they're playing ball, and here Ted Cruz, not backing down. And I know this article really struck a chord with you. You really liked it.
I did like it, and I think that a lot of Americans would identify with what Sarah Palin is saying in this. I loved especially her line that said it's time for the Senate to put itself on cruise control, because how often do we hear people who talk like activists when they're running for office, and then once they are in office, they just vote with the establishment. And right now, we have our heel on the head of the serpent, Obamacare, and instead of crushing it, we're going to lift up our foot and let it slither away. And the point is, Americans are waking up to the increased cost of this expanded federal mandate on people. They're losing jobs, they're having reduced work hours, and their bills overall are going up, and as well as their liberty. And I think that the American people are ready for their leaders to put a stop to this.
And you have to love the plain English again from Governor Palin that we also get so much from Senator Cruz, talking about a backstabbing game that's going on in Washington. And then I like how she says to Cruz, we can compare shiv marks next time we meet, my friend. That was the quote from the line, and it's true.
It is true, and as soon as someone does emerge that has a voice that's resonating with the people and with grassroots, there's a definite movement, not just among the media, but among the established political class to marginalize and crush that voice because they're interested in holding on to their power. And a case in point on this goes right to the heart of it. Love your neighbor as yourself. If you're exempting yourself from Obamacare, then exempt everyone from Obamacare. But that's not what Congress is doing.
Palin touches on the part here that Ted Cruz is doing all he can, and that if the other leaders don't stand with him, it'll be a loss, and not for Cruz, but for America, which is so true. Here's something I just don't understand why these establishment politicians, especially on the Republican side, don't understand. If they're looking at polls or worried about re-election, why do they think Obamacare is a popular thing? Because here's Ted Cruz, who is the only one really out there, one of the handful, Lee, Paul, a couple others, who is out there really speaking against it, and he's wildly popular.
Well, you can just look at the number of Americans who have expressed concern about Obamacare. It's 7 out of 10. In one of the polls that I saw, it's not like they would be going out on a limb to take a relook at this. And as Justice Kennedy stated in his arguments during the Supreme Court case, this fundamentally changes the relationship of the federal government to the individual. It's not something that we need our leaders to be weak-kneed on. We need them to have courage and not be concerned about their next election, but be concerned about their children and their grandchildren and what our nation is going to look like under this just oppressive mandate and expansion of the federal government.
I also really admire Governor Palin's, raw honesty here. She brings up some examples of what the media has done to her, and she actually puts in faking a pregnancy to abetting murder. I mean, for the fact that she's even, putting these ridiculous things in here that so many have gone after her with them, it's a credit to her. She's not ashamed to stand up to it and call them out on what they're doing to her, have done to her, and are now doing to Ted Cruz, and she flat out calls these media members weasels.
Well, I think that our concern doesn't need to be about what the media is going to say or what the establishment political class is going to say. Our concern should be what is the will of the people and what are they saying. And I believe that the people are desperate for leadership, for someone to actually lead on principles, and this is not hard to do, especially with something as egregious as this expansion of federal overreach with Obamacare. The American people, I believe, are behind stopping this from actually going into place, and I just encourage our leaders to have some courage themselves and do what they need to do to stop its implementation.
Absolutely. And as the governor says in the article, ignore the peanut gallery pundits. That's one word of advice. And I love this, too. Woman up. Stand your ground and fight like a girl. That's something a lot of the men on the Republican side need to learn, Susan.
That's for sure. And, Kevin, I just really appreciate the opportunity that we can speak about this and continue just to spread the word and to encourage our fellow Americans to step up to the plate as well and encourage your elected leaders to do what is right, and that is to do what they can to end the implementation of Obamacare.
And for our listeners who haven't seen the article, just go to Breitbart.com. It's under exclusive. Palin bombs away on Obamacare. Cruz is over the target. Susan Stimson, glad you brought this one up.
Thank you, Kevin.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. A couple weeks ago, I talked about the high unemployment rate among the lost generation of 20 to 24-year-olds and how many believe their future opportunities are disappearing. Let me remind you why that is. The important number to look at is 25. Why 25? According to the Congressional Budget Office, spending will equal our nation's GDP in 25 years if there is no change in fiscal policy. 25 years of lost opportunity for those kids. During the past 4 decades, government spending has averaged about 20% of GDP. Under Obama, it has risen to 25% of GDP. By 2038, it is estimated to be at 26% of GDP. Some estimates of the national debt equal almost 100% of gross domestic product today. In 25 years, it will be unsustainable. As with all economic models, the assumption that the CBO used is exactly the problem that Congress and this president will not address, and that is this: if there is no change in fiscal policy. In other words, Congress has to take action to live within our means or a country is headed for further economic disaster. This is Sarah Steelman with SarahNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. Just head to SarahNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SarahNet Radio. Visit SarahNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also follow along on Twitter at SarahNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimpson, and at Sarah_Steelman. We're on Facebook, too, so like SarahNet Radio and like Kevin Scholla. Palin Patriots is our feature on SarahNet.net. Check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Bader Carmoot and Martha Zoller. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimpson, and everyone here at SarahNet Radio. Thanks to Katrina Pierson, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day.